Do you think you've seen everything about this scandal? Well, now we have access to the leaked messages, one by one, between Kim Soo Hyun and Kim Se-ron, and the content is much more intimate than you'd expect. Let's start with the first message we know of. It surfaced dated June 2016, exactly 1 month before Kim Se-ron turned 16. At that time, Kim Soo Hyun was already 28, and despite this alarming age gap, their conversation takes on a tone that raises eyebrows and concerns. Kim Se-ron begins by saying she's heading back to filming and will be back soon. At that time, she was shooting the historical drama Secret Healer, where she played Princess Seori. The series, aired on JTBC, required long filming hours, which explains the tired tone in her messages. Kim Soo Hyun replies playfully, saying something like, "Come back soon, heh," and sends a heart emoticon. She responds with another emoticon and a written kiss sound, a light exchange at first glance, but it quickly turns more intimate. That's when Kim Soo Hyun says the line that gave this message its name. "Do it for real next time, hehe." This comment came right after she sent him a kiss sound, and he implies that instead of just sending messages, she should do it in person sometime. Then he adds, "Oh, is that not allowed either?" As if testing boundaries or joking about doing something wrong. Kim Se-ron responds, "No, it's not that. I will do it." Her reply, although seemingly light in tone, suggests she was accepting the suggestion, reinforcing just how intimate the conversation had become, all while she was still underage. The big question is, isn't it strange for a man nearly 30 years old to be exchanging this kind of message with a minor? Even if it seems like teasing, the nature of the conversation doesn't go unnoticed, especially considering who these people are and how old they were at the time. Shortly after that first, more intimate exchange, still in June 2016, Kim Se-ron sends another message to Kim Soo Hyun, this time a direct question, "Do you miss me or not?" She repeats it more than once, pushing for an answer, and the way she insists reveals something important, a search for validation. It feels like she wanted to be sure those feelings weren't just coming from her side. Kim Soo Hyun replies in a teasing tone, "You, what do you think? Do I miss you or not?" Instead of giving a clear answer, he throws the question back at her, keeping a flirty tone. Kim Se-ron presses on, "How would I know? If you don't tell me, there's no way I'll know." And he ends it by saying, "You're cute for asking that." What's most uncomfortable here isn't just the content itself, but the tone. A teenage girl trying to confirm feelings, and a 28-year-old man treating it like a flirtatious game. The emotional maturity gap between them is huge, and that makes this conversation, which might seem innocent in isolation, take on a much heavier meaning when seen alongside the earlier messages. This third conversation is, without a doubt, one of the most concerning so far. We're still in June 2016. The same time as the previous messages, the exchange begins with Kim Se-ron commenting that Kim Soo Hyun never wakes up. He replies saying he wouldn't even notice if she kissed him. That line alone is already questionable, but what comes next makes everything even more uncomfortable. Se-ron jokes that she could kiss him several times while he sleeps, and he wouldn't even know. And in that same tone, Kim Soo Hyun asks, "When can I hug you and sleep? I think I'd sleep really well that way." Once again, she responds positively, saying she would let him do that. This exchange is unsettling, because we're no longer just dealing with flirtation or verbal innuendo. Here, Kim Soo Hyun is clearly testing the physical boundaries of their relationship, even while knowing he's talking to a teenager. The desire for physical contact, even if expressed gently, is obvious, and the fact that it's conveyed so naturally shows not only the level of intimacy between them, but also the degree of comfort he felt in crossing extremely delicate lines. The fourth message is a direct continuation of the tone already established in the previous exchanges, but here, Kim Soo Hyun's intentions become even more explicit. He asks, "Will it take about a year?" Clearly referring to how long it would take for Kim Se-ron to be willing to start some kind of intimacy with him. Kim Se-ron responds hesitantly with a, maybe, once again showing uncertainty or doubt. But instead of dropping the subject, Kim Soo Hyun pushes further. He asks, 3 years? And the laugh that follows sounds more like awkwardness, disguised as humor. She tries to rationalize the situation. I mean, a year is already a long time, but 3? This is where the conversation hits an even more delicate tone. He proposes, "Do you think a year is too much? Then how about 6 months?" As if negotiating something that shouldn't even be on the table. We're talking about a grown man trying to set timelines for when a minor might be ready to get physically involved with him. Kim Se-ron's reply is short, but very telling. "I'll do it when I want to. No promises." She tries to set a boundary, even if vaguely, and what's most shocking is that her response makes it clear that, in her mind, the involvement was already seen as a matter of when, not if. That alone reveals the level of pressure and emotional manipulation she may have been under. This exchange exchange might be the most serious of all so far, because it doesn't just imply, it practically confirms Kim Soo Hyun's intent to lead the situation toward intimacy with a minor, and not as a one-time thing, but as part of a continued pattern of conversations. The language may be informal, full of giggles and emojis, but the content is far too serious to ignore. 2 years passed since the previous messages, and now, in June 2018, something new emerges. A handwritten letter from Kim Soo Hyun, written during his mandatory military service. He was 30, Kim Se-ron, 17. Despite the time that had passed, the age gap between them remained significant, and the content of the letter makes it clear that the emotional bond between them, at least from his side, not only remained, but seemed to have deepened. The letter opens with poetic reflections about winter, military training, and the feeling of being far from everything. He talks about memories of snow, the loneliness of the field, and the cold training nights. In an almost melancholic tone, Kim Soo Hyun says he wants to share these memories and thoughts with Kim Se-ron. He says that even without seeing her, he still feels the urge to share what's going on inside him. Then, he writes a line that carries enormous weight. "I think I still miss you, so I guess I'm saying that I do." A direct declaration, and once again, addressed to a teenager. The letter goes on with him pondering the future. He says he's thinking of going back to school after finishing his military service, and writes, "With the younger guys, I thought maybe I'll go back to school. Would that mean we could study together?" This question may seem innocent at first, but in the context of everything we already know about the two, it takes on a disturbing tone. The idea of sharing a school environment with someone who's still in high school feels, at the very least, inappropriate for someone who's 30. And he signs the letter as Kim, First Class, with a closing that reads, "Greetings from very, very far away." But emotionally, he doesn't seem far at all. On the contrary, everything suggests the bond was still alive, nurtured by that letter, by that persistent affection, and by a dynamic that had already shown itself to be unbalanced years earlier. This isn't just a letter about missing someone. It's a reinforcement of closeness, of affection, of interest, coming from an adult who, even after time and distance, continues to emotionally invest in a relationship with a minor, and that, at the very least, demands questioning. The next exchange took place in August 2018, shortly after the handwritten letter Kim Soo Hyun sent during his military service. At that point, Kim Se-ron had already turned 18, but the age gap between them, he was 30, still raised many questions, especially considering their past history. The Garosero Research Institute channel released an alleged conversation in which Kim Soo Hyun asks Kim Se-ron to stop using KakaoTalk and to start communicating with him via Telegram using a new phone. The key detail here is that unlike KakaoTalk, Telegram has a feature called Secret Chat, where messages can be set to self-destruct after being read, leaving no trace behind. Kim Se-ron's replies shows surprise at the request. She asks, "You're just gonna delete KakaoTalk like that?" And the next day she sends, "It's a call, pick up." This type of exchange raises a clear red flag. Why would Kim Soo Hyun want to switch to a less traceable platform with disappearing messages, especially with someone he had already exchanged such controversial messages with in the past? The attempt to erase digital traces isn't just suspicious. It could indicate that he knew their conversations weren't appropriate, or, at the very least, shouldn't be seen by others. In this context, the switch of messaging platforms doesn't seem like a casual or convenient decision. It carries the weight of a strategy to keep the contact hidden, away from anyone who might have access to their past chat history. And coming from an adult with this background, the request becomes even more concerning. The last message revealed is a postcard sent by Kim Soo Hyun in November 2019 during a trip to Paris. At that time, Kim Se-ron was 19 years old and thus legally an adult. Still, the content of the card deserves close attention, especially because it serves as a key piece in understanding the timeline of their alleged relationship. In the postcard, Kim Soo Hyun uses an intimate nickname for her, Saironero. He writes that he had a drink in Paris, bought the card at a souvenir shop, and casually says he picked up a pen to write. The message is short, but full of emotion. He promises to keep teasing her, declares, "I love you, Saironero," says she makes him proud, calls her amazing, and ends with an eternal apology. "And I'm sorry, forever." The card is signed YouTuber Kim Paris, a casual way of identifying himself, perhaps to avoid attention in case it was intercepted. But the most important part here isn't what he wrote. It's what this card represents in the context of everything we've seen so far. According to Kim Soo Hyun's own agency, the two were allegedly involved between mid-2019 and the end of 2020, that is, after Kim Se-ron became an adult. But when you look at this postcard in light of all the previous messages, which began when she was just 15, it becomes impossible to ignore that this relationship had been building for a long time. The choice of words words, the affectionate tone, and the way he addresses her indicate that the bond not only remained strong over the years, but evolved into something more open. The postcard, though seemingly harmless in content, is in practice a confirmation that the involvement was never truly broken off. It simply evolved. And that brings us to a central question. When does a relationship really begin? On paper, it may have started after she turned 18, but in practice, all signs point to an emotional and possibly romantic connection that began much earlier. And that's exactly what makes this entire situation so concerning. What do you think after reading all these messages in depth? Leave your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.